check a few items and then we're going to service the brakes. You can see that these brake hoses are old. The cross hatching on the brake hoses means they're more than 10 years old and we'll need to change these. I'm going to take the screws out of the drum, but you can see that one is missing, so we'll take the other two out and we'll remove the drum. Once you've got the screws removed, we're going to try and pull the drum off. What happens to these studs is they get pulled in. You can see how tight they are on one side. So a quick jerk will pull them off. You can see that these brake linings have been bonded on, which is incorrect. They should be riveted on. You can see that they've stressed up and they've cracked right through there. You can see all those heat cracks building up. You can see that the shoe isn't hitting the drum properly there. So we'll take the shoes off. It's a little difficult to take these shoes off. You have to do them in the right order. Pull them out of the bottom half of the wheel cylinder. You've got a peg for the self-adjusting there. You slip them off there. Take the shoe off and you have to rotate it around like that. You can see that. Now we can see that the cracks going across the shoe, which is a heat build-up. The problem is with these is they're bonded. These shoes should be riveted on. The linings are too long. You can see that they've extended way beyond the need, or way beyond where the rivet holes are, which is more lining than is needed. So we're going to put the correct linings on. You can, I just pulled the shoe off there and you can see that the brake fluid has oozed out of that wheel cylinder there. So we now know that we're going to be rebuilding the wheel cylinder. You can see that there, all the fluid has leaked out of there. So we've found a number of problems in just that step. So what we'll need to do, because of this rust build up and all of this, is we'll probably have to change these wheel cylinders. We'll use the re-sleeve wheel cylinders and we'll change them. But to do that, we have to remove the backing plate from the stub axle, and this will help us at that time. We'll change the hoses as well. So we're going to take this cap off here, like so. There's a split pin or a cotter pin in there. Need to bend. Pull that out of there. And then we'll take the nut off. You can see that the nut is left-handed. I'm going clockwise and the nut is coming off. All the Rolls-Royce nuts on this side of the car are left-handed on spinning surfaces, so that they tighten up, not undo as they're spinning. Sometimes you'll get a car where they've mixed up the stub axles and you'll find they're back to front over there, but this car's correct, like that. So we've slipped it off. We've got a spacer washer there. These are the wheel bearings. Take the time to repack those before we put them on. You can see they're very beefy and meaty. They don't generally cause a problem on these cars. The next step is to undo these bolts around the stub axle. It's got a lock tab which we're going to bend back. Now we're ready to remove these bolts, but before I do that, I'm going to release the hoses so that when I've released the bolts, I can take it right off to the floor. So we're going to remove the pipes completely, the hoses, the brake hoses. The reason for this is because the hoses break down inside. These hoses block up, the inside collapses, and they act like a one-way valve. The pressure from the master cylinder pushes right through the hose, but the pressure of the spring pushing the fluid back isn't enough to get it through the hose. So as these hoses age, it's necessary to change them, and we do this about every 10 years. If you don't change them, what can happen is that the front brakes can go on fire, or so can the rears for that matter. Be very careful with these pipes that you don't, if these are rusted to the nut and you turn them, you're going to break them off. You need to be a little bit careful. And you notice I removed the lock nut. That allows the hose to go away from the fitting and makes it easier to come off. You can see that hose is now out of the fitting. I haven't bent the pipe or this out the way so that it's still going to be as easy to join up when we're finished. Take that end out. So we're going to take the inside fitting off the hose, wind that through. We're going to let the lock nut that holds the hose to the bracket off. Use the scissor action again. Be careful when you're flicking this stuff around. You've got to remember this is brake fluid and it's going to take the paint off the fender, so you've got to be a little bit careful of that. And we repeat the process on this other side. Then I'm holding the hose there. You can see my action, and I pull up around. That gives us a So I'll loosen that till it goes tight, then I'll loosen the lock nut. There. As I said earlier, that gives us some clearance. You can see everything starts to free up there. There, so now we've got the inside one again. The lock nut's tight where the pipe's gone rusty over the years. Once we get it down to where the fitting is, it'll free off a bit. So we're going to remove the 6 bolts that hold the backing plate to the stub axle. So now we pull the backing plate right off, as you can see, and we're ready to take that to the bench. So we're at the left rear wheel. We'll notice that another screw is missing, just as it was in the front. We're going to remove these 2 screws and remove the drum, and we'll have a look what's going on inside. Then we're going to strike the axle, the half shaft at this point, and put our fingers behind the drum. The drum is made up of the base and then some cooling fins. If you strike on the cooling fins, you're going to break them off. So what we're going to do is we're going to aim our shot there, or at very least at the end of the drum, at the end of the studs. So a nice sharp crack, pulled it. Pull the drum off. You can see the linings there. These linings are riveted, so they're better than the fronts. Probably a little low on this side. So what we need to do is we need to remove this spring. This spring is a pullback spring there. We're going to remove it there, then we're going to pull it off there. So we're going to remove this pull-off spring here. There, this is hooked through a hook at the back, and we pull the shoe slightly forward. Been a little bit awkward, but there you go. Managed to pull that out. You can see that hook there. This goes in the clip, that goes in the shoe. The hook and the spring goes down in there. So So we're going to remove the shoes. I'm going to use a screwdriver, lift up on this one, pull that out of there, and use the screwdriver again. We've got a bit of seizure on this here, which is making it a little bit awkward. We knock that down there, we pull that. Now what we have to do with these shoes is we have to twist them around, and we've got, as I say, we've got some seizure, which isn't making it any easier. We have to pull that around, and you can see that stud. Well, there's a nut on the back of that, so we're going to turn that around to there and try and get this out of here. The expander for the handbrake is there, so we push that in a bit, and that allowed us to take the shoes out. You can see that the shoe is thicker at this point than this, so the shoe hasn't worn evenly. It's very uneven in its wear, so we're going to change these linings and shoes. You can see that this one here is better, but it's still in a little bit of a distressed state, so we're going to change this out. You can see on this wheel cylinder that this has some very peculiar rubbers. These are not correct at all, so we'll change those. And you can see there that this is showing signs of leaking, so we're going to change this. We're going to use the brass lined things. You can see both pistons are rusting up, so we're going to put another wheel cylinder on with a brass liner in it. We've got seizure here. This is seized up solid, which doesn't allow you to adjust the brake, and if you forced this adjuster out, of course it would lock the brake up solid. So the next step is to remove the brake line from the back of this wheel cylinder and take off the compensator rod that joins to this expander. This expander is for the initial pressure when you put your foot on the brake initially. What happens is the rods come out and push the linings out to the drum, and then the servo takes over and pushes the wheel cylinder out, but we'll cover more of that as we go along. To remove the wheel cylinder, we're going to have to undo the pipe, the compensator rod, and take the bleed nipple out. We're going to take the compensator rod spring off, and we'll do that first. Take the spring. There's a couple of S's. You can see those S's there. They should have two on each end of the compensator rod where they join the drum. Take the dust poop, pull that back. Again, as we did with the front, we're going to be very careful undoing everything, and it's always worth just doing it up a little bit first to free it up before you try and undo it. So we'll take the nipple out. The nipple's at an angle and it won't come through the slot that's provided for it, so we have to take it right out. So we take the nipple out. We're going to take the pipe out. See, we're a little tight, so I wiggle it back and forth. Break the rust free of the pipe without breaking the pipe. Okay, so now we've got the brake pipe out of the cylinder. We're going to take the cotter pin or split pin out of the compensator rod there. So that frees up the compensator rod. So we're left with one 2BA nut. Going to take off. There is actually a lock tab on there, but it was so rusted I couldn't see it. So what I did was I tapped the socket on to allow me to undo the bolt. So we take the 2BA bolt, can see the lock tab there that I had to bend over. It was covered in crud. So that frees up the wheel cylinder. I'm going to give it a little tap just to encourage it to come out. You can see that there. There's a rubber gasket that you don't want to tear, so we'll take a screwdriver and we'll just poke that there, and you can see that wheel cylinder has now come out. You've got the bleed nipple hole and the line hole and the bolt hole, and there's the compensator. So take off the other side in exactly the same way, then we're ready to go to the bench and rebuild them. So we're underneath the car at the master cylinder now, and we're going to remove the two hoses that feed the fluid from the reservoir. So I'm going to undo the hose clamps, and I'm going to ease the hoses off and then loosen off the high pressure pipes. So we undo the clamp. Take the time while it's stuck to the hose to undo it as much as you need to. Push the rubber hose out of the way. So we're going to remove the clamp on the top hose by undoing the clip. Loosen off the two pipe fittings for the high pressure pipes on top, and then we're going to the other side to remove the plate. Remove the bolt that holds the fork for the main shaft on the arms of the master cylinder. Remove the bolt from the top of the handbrake lever, so 7/16. And then pull the shaft off there. We're now going to remove the bolts through the master cylinder, the two 5/16 or half-inch wrench size and the two 9/16 wrench size, which are 3/8 bolts. Going to remove the two bolts from this end and the two bolts from there, and that will allow us to take the plate off. We also have to remove the shaft, or the bolt with the shaft on it, for the handbrake lever, which is exactly the same. And then we'll be ready to drop the master cylinders. So we're going to remove the last bolt that's holding the plate, which is the top one, which is the shaft for the handbrake lever. We've got to watch as we take it down, have to come off the thing. We pull that out, and you'll notice inside there you can see the spacer, the bolt. Then we're going to take the side plate off the shaft, take that down, and that exposes the master cylinders. What we're left with is the spring on here. Take down. Remove the fittings from the master cylinder. Just keep going until you get the fitting out. Watch yourself as you take it off. You can let that master cylinder drop down. And then we'll do the other one. When you've removed the fittings from the master cylinder, you can lift them down. We're now looking at the master cylinder assembly underneath the Silver Cloud 2. This is the handbrake linkage, and this is the linkage that goes to the servo. We're going to drop the handbrake cable and the servo linkage at this point, and then proceed to the servo and drop the rest of the linkage. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the spring. This spring has been put in the wrong spot, and it's going to be a little bit difficult to get down.
forced it down. The spring should be in this hole there. That would be the correct place for the spring. So when we assemble it, we will do that. We take the spring off. This makes it free for us at this stage to pull the cotter pin from the handbrake. Push the clevis pin out. That frees up the handbrake cable. We're going to send this all the way to the front to take it out of the way. We'll wrap it around this gear shift linkage here, just to keep it out of our way. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to remove the bolts from the servo to the master cylinder. Take the bolt out, these are special bolts, keep the nut together. And then also have some spacers. Take off the rod. That one. Take this part out. That relieves the two rods. We're now going to have to remove them from the servo end. To do this, we have a 2BA bolt, which we undo. Take the bolt out. This leaves us a horseshoe or clip there. That out. And then we take a clevis pin out. This is nice and free, greased up. And remove one rod. This one here is a little different, and this is for the reverse. This is so when the car's going backwards, this can float over a little more. I'll take two bolts out of there. So when we get this bolt out, I'd like you to take note of the way this clip is on. You can see that that clip has a leg that goes over there. We take this pin out of here, which will free us up, and you can see that this shape of this linkage, you have a bar there, and this is open. And we'll take this out. They're the two activating rods. They go to the master cylinder and pull it on and off reverse. We have two more rods up higher there we have to take out. So we're going to remove the bolt from the brake pedal rod. We just loosen it with the wrench, and then we should be able to get it out with our fingers. Take the clip out. Make the clevis pin come out. Like so. That releases that. Then we just have the rod to the compensator. Take the bolt and the clip. Allows us to take the pin out of there. And that frees up the two servo arms. This bracket here is if the rod at the back should break or a pin be left out, this lever can go forwards, hit that, and cause the servo to still work. It would give you a very low pedal, but that is a safety feature that you must remember to put back up. That's the on-stop lever. Take the bolt out. This will allow you to turn the on-stop, and that will allow us to turn the servo down there. That leaves us one more bolt, which is on the end of the servo. Loosen the bolt off like so. Once the bolt's out, pull it out. It has to stay in the linkage or the inside the tube. Now we need to pull the servo off. You can see that this servo is a lot of movement and loose. So we'll give that a bit of a thump there. Everything was a bit tight. And that's the servo out of there.
The thing we're going to strip apart is the backing plate off the front axle, and we're going to remove the two pipes, take the nipples out and undo the screws. You can see the movement we've got there, just that the fitting is just about seized to the pipe, so we'll move that back and forth till we get that all the way round, but it doesn't cause us a problem. Oh, it's going to cause us a problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift that up like so, and I'm going to wind that around so that I can get it into the vise and free that up. I didn't distort the pipe too much, but I don't want to risk losing the pipe. So that's that one. This one's free. You can see that's going round and round. That's that one. So now we'll take our nipples out. There's a ball inside the hole and a depression on the nipple, and the nipple squeezes the ball into the fitting. If this was clean, you could see that there's a hole there that comes past the ball, and that's how the bleeder works. So you don't want to lose the ball. You've got to keep your eye on that and where that's going. You can see that other one in there. I'm going to use a magnet and draw the ball out of the hole so that I don't lose it. You can see the ball there. Put that to one side. Do the same on the other one. Pull the ball out. You can see that there. Put that to one side. Then I'm going to remove the screws, the back of the wheel cylinder. Same on this side. Now we're faced with removing these screws. On the other side there's nuts which are easier to remove. So we'll turn that over. You can see there and there all the nuts. We'll take our 1132. Undo that. What I'm doing here is I'm making it easy for myself because I'm letting the rust and the crud hold the screw while I undo it. If they do come loose, I've got to go to both sides and hold the screw, so I'm using that, I hope, to an advantage. When you've got the last nut off, you can lift off the grease catcher, and then the backing plate is separated away from the cylinder holder. Take the springs off. And now we're ready to release the wheel cylinders away from the plate. So now we're going to remove the big nuts and the half-inch nuts to let the cylinders off the plate. Take that bolt out. You can see there's a star washer on there. And we'll take the other one out. take our soft hammer, tap one bolt out, tap the other one out. Now you'll notice there's a shaft that goes through there, and what that does is it picks up on the edge of this plate. So you have to be particularly careful because there's a good amount of seizure around here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take the soft hammer and knock that off. And you can see in there that that pin picks up on that side. So you can't go banging it either way, you have to go straight off. So we'll do the other side. Like so. Now we're going to take the piston out. And we'll push the cup in. You can see the rust and the build up on that rubber cup there, and the spreader and the spring. You can also see the state of the wall of the wheel cylinder and the amount of crud that's in the bottom. Take the other one. You can see that that was leaking well and truly. Pull that. You can see there's a build-up of rust there. You can also see all the rust inside that wheel cylinder. So these wheel cylinders need sleeving. What we'll do is we'll give them a good clean up, blast, send them out for CAD plating, and then send them out to have the brass sleeves put in. When we assemble this unit, we'll be using different wheel cylinders, but all this will be saved and